I think the intention there is not to have two tires, it's to have one tire, and we're just kind of seeing if that tire is an option or not.
Let's remember one thing. He drives for Rick Hendrick.
Right.
They don't go out and hire bums.
I like it when you're running NASCAR in this instance, but your dream's probably not going to happen. Welcome on to the Backstretch. I am News 5's Heather Williams. And how about Kyle Larson? I mean, he was as close as you could possibly get to sweeping the weekend, all three races at Homestead, without actually doing it. And the funny thing is that the race that he didn't win of the three is the one he was actually the most dominating in, the Xfinity Series race. It's pretty incredible to watch what he's done, to see what he's done in so many different disciplines of race cars. Like, the kid is just that talented. I call him a kid, but I know he's in his 30s, but he's just that talented. And he's also very like checkers or wreckers, which is probably the reason why he's so good, because he just races hard all the time. It may be the thing that ultimately keeps him from maybe matching Kyle Busch's record of sweeping the weekend or winning a ton more championships, maybe as many as he should over his career. But you cannot deny, especially after watching what he did last weekend and watching what he did in Indy and what he will do probably again this year in Indy when he runs the double and the Coke 600, hopefully being able to actually do it this year. You cannot deny that he is maybe the most talented guy in the garage area. Kyle Busch is certainly up there with him, and I think Christopher Bell is in the same stratosphere as him. But that's kind of it. That's the list. There are guys that are as good as him maybe in a cup car, or as good as him maybe in the truck. But across all disciplines, no matter what you put him in, the number of people that can do what he does is a very short list. It is very impressive. So that's one of the things we're going to talk about with our crew chief, Chris Carrier. We will also talk about, and I'm going to talk about this in my final thought today a little bit more, talk about the possibility of the championship race moving to Homestead or perhaps somewhere else, moving away from Phoenix. Our guest this week is Erik Jones. We'll talk a little bit about how much improved Legacy Motor Club is as a group. Even if they aren't still quite getting the finishes, they are running a ton better this year. So we'll talk to him about that, as well as Martinsville, and we'll kind of peel back the curtain and peek ahead one week just slightly, because Erik is so good at Darlington that I really wanted to talk to him about that racetrack as well. So that is what is on the agenda this week. Let's get rolling. Joining us now is our crew chief, Chris Carrier, who is also the crew chief for the number 75 Food Country truck in the Craftsman Truck Series. Chris, Kyle Larson came so close to sweeping the weekend at Homestead. And the race he didn't win, the Xfinity Series race, was the one he was actually the best in and probably deserved to win the most. Yep. He's going to try to do it again at Bristol, the triple. Is it just a matter of time until he joins the other Kyle Busch as the only person to ever sweep a triple header weekend?
I would have to say yes, Heather. I mean, look, Kyle Larson, the talent that he is, and as much as he loves to race, that's a mixture. You know, Christopher Bell has been the guy that has been the guy of the year so far, you know, and then they went to Las Vegas and then Homestead, and you know, Kyle Larson is not going to sit back and just say, okay, I'm going to let somebody else dominate this year and I'm not going to do anything. Kyle Larson steps up and says, wait a minute, don't forget about me. And as you said, he won the truck race on Friday night. He kind of dominated the Xfinity race on Saturday, and then a late race, one of those late race caution scenarios where everything goes chaos on a restart. He gets kind of turned sideways from the guy behind him, which they're all on old tires. It's going to happen. And he ends up losing that race, finishing third. He's pretty bummed, you know, and I'm sure the team is too. Then he comes back on Sunday, and when it comes down to time to go and it's him and one of his teammates, again, he emerges as that shark that's sitting back there.
Just the pure presence of him behind.
Pure presence.
Alex Bowman, made
Yes.
Alex make a mistake, and Alex said that after the race. I mean, knowing, and it's got to be worse when it's your teammate, knowing that guy is behind you makes you make mistakes.
Well, we used to talk about, still do talk about sometimes, you know, say, well, he spun him out from 3 car lengths back. And it's on a track like Homestead, you are this far away from that wall, and the car's going like this. It doesn't look like it on TV, but trust me, they're going like that all the way around the racetrack, and you're trying to get all the you're trying to use the throttle as much as you can and not go over that line and hit the wall. And one time of looking in the mirror, and you look up, oh no, pow. And that's what happened. And you're right, it's worse when it's your teammate, because everybody, the mindset is, well, you got the same stuff he does. So,
Which he does.
Driver.
He has I was going to say, he does have the same stuff he does, except for where it's probably most important, which is in between the ears and inside the helmet.
And, you know, one thing I think that
by the way, not that Alex Bowman is not an incredible driver.
He is an incredible
But there are
driver.
very few people that are Kyle Larson.
Well, let's say one thing for Alex Bowman. Let's remember one thing. He drives for Rick Hendrick.
Right.
They don't go out and hire bums. They go out and hire people that they know they can put in their cars and win races. They're the top team in NASCAR and have been for some time. So let's don't really go to start feeling sad for Alex Bowman.
Right.
He's going to get his share. He's been doing very well. They love him. He's a remarkable young man. He stepped up last year and won that street race at Chicago when the pressure was on, and I think he just outdrove everybody then. But when you got Kyle, I think that a lot of people forget that Kyle Larson is not, he's not an older guy. He's not old enough to be a veteran, but he's got veteran experience, and he's run a ton of races, because he runs all year round doing, you know, he'll run 2 or 2.5 seasons in one compared to most drivers as far as just pure seat time and laps. So, you know,
and
listen,
I think
he's
other drivers
on.
are catching on to that, right? Because you see Christopher Bell, you see Ty Gibbs, you see some of these other drivers. Alex, until he broke his back, and then I think he decided maybe this isn't such a good idea for me.
Yeah.
But you see them doing that, and it's paying off, and at least in Bell's side of things, it's paying off and result in the Cup Series as well.
Yes, and I think you're right. They're all looking at that and saying, now, wait a minute, maybe there's something to this, you know, and you have to, you know, that has to be a balancing act with, like, okay, you know, Kyle Larson balances somehow he balances his personal life and his family life and the things that he, you know, is outside of racing with that very busy racing schedule that he does year after year. And somehow or another, he makes it work. Now, I don't know that
He makes it work, and the same thing with Christopher Bell, because they are married to racers.
Well, they're married to people that love racing, and that's you know, I remember having to talk with my wife way back, and you know, and I just had to tell her kind of, this is kind of how it's going to be, and we're going to have to work on it together, and we did. And I'm blessed with a wonderful wife with a wonderful marriage that has put up with a lot of stuff. And most racers, we all know one another, how it has to happen. But Larson has done very well with that. He's very blessed to be able to do that. You know, Heather, and some people, it doesn't mean that he's stronger than other people or better or whatever. It just, some people just can't do that. You know, they can't all year round, every year, you know, they're themselves, wife or no family or whatever. Some people just don't, you know, they're not going to do that. They're not going to do all year long. They've got to have a break, and the break is what's best for them. So I think he knows his own recipe. He's proven it. He's always, when you're at the racetrack with a NASCAR race, at least, sprint car race too, Kyle Larson is the target you're after.
Yeah.
If you're in practice and you're wondering how you're doing, you think you'll look up and see how fast Kyle Larson's running. That's the target. And if I can run as fast as he is and do as good as he is, I'm going to do pretty good in the race. So he's just not going to sit around and let Christopher Bell or anybody else win all the races. He's going to win his race. And to answer your original question, yes, he's going to win a weekend sweep somewhere, Truck Xfinity Cup, and it may be Bristol.
I was going to say, you guys might have something to do about it.
We're going to try to have a say about that. We're fine with him taking 2 out of 3, but we're going to try. We're going to try very hard to have a say in that. But he's going to do it other races, I guess, and somewhere along the line, it's going to happen. And you know, it may happen more than once because he's, as much as he loves to race, he probably likes doing 3 races. You know, he probably says, well, I'm at the racetrack, why not? Yeah. What else is there to do?
I'm at the track, there's a race going on. Let's do it.
Race in it.
All right, so there have been whispers, and they're starting to grow a little bit louder, that the championship race could be moving back to Homestead from Phoenix. I'd like to get your thoughts on that. Plus, if Chris Carrier ran NASCAR, which I know is kind of a scary proposition, where would you have the championship race?
I think, Heather, now you got to take into considerations that they have to, that it's going to be the last week of October or the first week of November. That's when it's going to end. And that has, over the years, that has backed up now about a month.
Yeah.
So, you know, thinking about, okay, where are we going to have good weather, try to have good weather, a track that's in good weather for that time of year that we can have a race that in weather where fans want to come out and watch it. So that it kind of, in a way it limits the places, but if it were me and I could wave a magic wand and make it happen, I would rotate it. I would rotate it. I'd love to see it right down here at Bristol Speedway.
Oh,
you talk about intense.
Way too cold in November, but yes.
But maybe. You talk about intense. Now, that would be the highest pressure, you know, because you can go to be having a really good day at Bristol, think you're going to win the race. I've got the championship, buddy. I've got this duck cooked. Pow! Here it comes, and oh no, we're going to have a terrible day right out of nowhere. And you know, I think they should rotate the thing around. I really do. And yeah, it's going to take some planning and.
Between what tracks, though, right? Because you probably aren't going to have it at a super speedway, and you're probably not going to have it at a road course. So are we talking about rotating it around between the 1.5 miles and short tracks?
I think 1.5 miles and short tracks, and again, you got to factor in the weather thing. It depends on how brave you want to be. I think it would probably be, we need Dave Dirks here for his weather expertise to fill in on this, but you know, you're probably going to have a better chance of having better weather late October, 1st of November at, you know, you're probably going to have a better chance at Atlanta. Okay, you could do it there. Probably be okay at Darlington. Mm-hmm. Talk about an intense one.
If you're right on the edge at Darlington.
Yes. Well, but if the race itself for a championship on a Sunday afternoon, don't do it a nice race. Everybody freeze to death, and you'll never have another race there. But there's just a few tracks like that I would love to see. You know, I think you could probably have it at Texas. Mm-hmm. Maybe. Texas is far enough south.
Texas, Vegas.
South is not, Texas is not my favorite track personally, but if I'm talking about, if you're saying, hey, let's get at least 7 or 8 tracks and rotate this thing around and you know, make it to where you don't have the same thing every year. I think, to me, that's a little bit unfair to our fans because not everybody can travel to Phoenix every year. Not everybody can travel to Homestead even every year. Las Vegas might be, could be a place where the weather would be good enough at the end of October to be, you know, and it'd be another 1.5 miles. I think mix it up myself. I think that would give the most interest and excite more fans and build our sport better. And I think it would mix up also who might be the ones that were trying to win the thing.
Yeah, so it takes away like the advantage that Penske currently has at Phoenix. I like it when you're running NASCAR in this instance, but your dream's probably not going to happen just from the fact that I don't think NASCAR is going to let the championship race be at one of Bruton's tracks, ever.
No, I think you're exactly right. You know, I would put politics aside. I would think about my most important, my first priority is what is the best interest for the people that's making the way, and that's the spectators. That's the people who support and the viewers. Try to give them, I mean, let's face it, Heather, we're in the entertainment business.
Right. Well, and the track that would probably give honestly, the best racing for a championship race is Kansas, but it is way too cold in November. It might be snow. There might be 7 inches of snow on the ground in Kansas.
In Kansas, there's no mountain protection. There are no mountains or
There's no
hills.
protection
No
at all.
protection. No.
It's just lots of wind and cold, and at that time of year, maybe even snow and ice.
Well, that'd be dangerous.
Yeah,
So,
interesting but dangerous.
Kansas would be a good track because Kansas is tough.
Yeah.
And it would be very intense. That's what I would like to see, is something that's very intense. It's something that everybody's got a good chance at and has experience there, and like at the end of the day, it's no excuses. It's just the guy who wants it the most. Now, too, there's always going to be luck involved. I don't care where you go, and I don't care who's the fastest driver. I don't care if it's Kyle Larson or Dale Earnhardt or Jeff Gordon or Jimmy Johnson or Richard Petty or whoever. There's always going to be that factor of luck involved, and that's part of the entertainment value as well. You know, we don't want to go and see everything that everybody's expecting. That's boring. You want to see something happening like, oh man, I didn't really see that coming. That's what makes it interesting. So I don't know. What you said, I believe, is going to be right on. I think it's always going to be at a NASCAR-owned track, or not a Smith family-owned track, just so they can have the bragging rights. There's nothing wrong with Phoenix, except it's way too far away and from us, and I don't really get the entertainment value myself out of Phoenix.
Yeah, well, it was much better. It was much better in the previous generation of race car, because short track racing was better. In this generation of race car, I really feel like the championship race needs to be on the 1.5 miles. It's the best racing in this car.
I think you're right about that, because everything about this car is hovered and hubbed around aerodynamics. Everything is, the focus is around aerodynamics. Everything about that car is to try to make aerodynamics better, or at least equal. And sometimes that's not the best for the entertainment value. So, we'll see. We'll see what happens. Maybe enough people like us will have enough influence, a collective amount of saying, we need it somewhere else besides Phoenix or anywhere else every year. We need to rotate this thing around a little bit where, I think the teams would love that too.
Well, and they've done that with the Clash, and it's actually been really successful, in my opinion.
I think it generated more interest, because even this year, everybody was saying, man, I got to watch this. They're going to race at Bowman Gray. They're going to tear up everything. They're going to tear up more stuff than a team of mules. And it's everybody watched it. Now, people had different opinions about the race itself and the racing, but everybody watched it. They had a huge crowd, and maybe they'll have it somewhere else next year. Maybe they'll have it back there. I don't really know. But you're right. Your point is that changing things up causes interest. It brings interest. It makes people want to watch, because I want to see this thing. Maybe the only time they ever do it, but I want to see it happen. So we'll see.
So this week, NASCAR heads to Martinsville. All the talk is about the tires. They're going to run a softer tire, hopefully improve the racing, which they're trying to do on all the short tracks. It's been kind of meh at Martinsville in the next-gen era. What do you think we'll see this weekend?
Well, if the tires do, I think, what Goodyear and NASCAR plans or hopes, then we'll see a lot of that phrase goers and comers. Like Darrell Waltrip always used to say, you got some goers and comers. That means you got some guys, when the tires wear out, which will be fairly quickly, hopefully, those tires will start to slow down. They'll lose grip. It won't turn as good, and the rear tires won't stay in the earth, won't track as well when you use the gas. Okay, coming off the corner, and also going in the corner when you get off the gas and get on the brakes, and the car goes through deceleration, that nose down, then most of the time is when you'll hear that term wheel hop. When you get on the brakes and the rear tires become unloaded and they actually hop across the racetrack. That ends up breaking parts. But when that time comes, you'll have cars that the setup is more balanced, okay, front to rear, the driver can predict the car a lot better, and he can run more consistent fast lap times than the guy whose car is not balanced very well.
And that also favors guys with short track backgrounds at a short track where it didn't, for a while, it wasn't because there wasn't that wear-off. But I think you'll see guys like Denny Hamlin and Josh Berry, the guys that are very good at that tire management.
Yes.
If it does what they want to do, they should be the guys that are up front this weekend.
Well, I mean, it makes sense, and I think that guys like that also, when they know that, when they've got in their head that, like, man, this tire's going to wear out, and these things, after about 20 laps, are going to not drive very well. The front won't turn. The rear tires won't stay in the racetrack when I'm trying to use the throttle. It's going to be very hard to have good, consistent lap times, and the more you punish them, the more you spin those tires, the more you grind those front tires in the middle of the corner, the worse it's going to get. So I got to be the factor. The driver has to be, I've got to overcome that. I got to do a better job than these other 40 guys out here that have the same situation that I do. They're terrible cars. They drive like they're going to be complaining. They're going to be, you know, cussing their crew chief and telling him he's an idiot and all this stuff like that. That's when we turn the radio off. but you know,
that's why I turn it up. I love whiny drivers.
Somebody has got to say, this may be bad, but I've got to make it to be the best of all the other bad cars here. I've got to do the best job. Again, the Denny Hamlins and the Josh Berrys are the names that come to mind when you say, okay, who can do that? You know, now, let's remember, the Cup Series is a field full, at least probably 30 drivers that are the best stock car drivers in the world. So they're all pretty doggone good at this, and they should be good, and I can promise you, a lot of them have been doing a lot of simulation or iRacing on steroids work this week, trying to get their footwork really smooth between gas and braking, and trying to get, you know, knowing what they're going to expect when that tire wears out. That's very difficult for the engineers to come up with because of having the tire model, to actually copy that, to copy what the tires really do on the racetrack in real race situations to you know, go to an electronic video game, you know, but some of those guys can do pretty amazing things. And we'll see. I mean, you know, Denny Hamlin, I think will be there. I think, you know, Josh Berry, he's off to a great start with that team. The Wood brothers, they're from Stewart, Virginia, which is right down the road from Martinsville. Those two guys, Kyle Larson and Christopher Bell, we keep talking about.
And William Byron is very good.
William Byron is very good there. And you know, you might also see some guys like, you know, Brad Keselowski has run good there. Joey Logano has run good there. Again, this is the Cup Series. And again, now they've all got crew chiefs, race engineers, management at the race team, people that come up with packages to say, I think this will work this weekend, I think that will work, or this will work. They're all going through, and now some of those guys, all of them are very smart. Some of those guys are going to hit the combination, you know, before they ever get there. They're going to hit the combination that's going to work. Some of them it's going to be, it's okay, but it's not great. Some of it's going to be, oh my God, we need to go back to the drawing board.
And if we knew the answer to who that was going to be, you and I'd both be at the casino instead of right here.
Yeah, or we maybe own a F1 team and have somebody pay us $400 million or something like that, or whatever. I don't know. We'd probably be doing something pretty good, but it's hard work for those guys, and it takes a stubbornness to say, I'm going to come up with this. And again, it's the crew chiefs and the race engineers, just like that driver that says, I got to be the best one of these. They're trying to be the best ones also, to where they have the best car at Martinsville this weekend. Because in a situation like this, when you know a tire situation or whatever, all the cars are going to drive terrible through most of the race because the tires are going to be worn out. There's going to be no grip. They're going to be slipping around. Drivers going to be irritated and hollering. To be able to be the guy or the guys or the group of people, men and women, that come up with, okay, we prepared this car. We made decisions of what to do here, what to do there, how the setup was. There's hundreds of decisions in that, little things. And the one that comes out and says, man, we had the best car here today, they're going to be I'm
Big Superman on their chest.
Superman, you know, and it's a proud time for them too. That's why they want it so bad. So we'll see. Back to Martinsville, get you some hot dogs and watch some good slam bam racing.
First of all, Erik, thanks for taking the time to join us. Really appreciate it.
Absolutely.
So I think I talked to you right before the season started, maybe right before the clash. You guys were pretty excited about the season. Seems like the excitement is as well, like it was on point, because I mean, I know you specifically have maybe not gotten the finishes that you wanted to, but as a group, it really seems like Legacy is running much better than they were at the end of last year. Is that a fair assessment?
Yeah, I think the last couple of weeks of 24, we probably took a couple of steps forward and then did a lot of work in the off season to try to, improve and improve our process putting cars together. And I think it's shown for sure in the speed. You look at the last 3 weeks and we've had a car qualify in the top 10, all those, and top five in a couple of them. The finishes for us haven't been there. We finished better yesterday at Homestead, but having the speed is definitely a big obstacle to overcome. So it's nice to have that, and now kind of figuring out the rest of it, figuring out the long run and putting these races together. And yesterday was a better step of that. Is kind of that next step, but definitely nice to have some speed in the car and have them driving well, unloading, and just trying to take that next step now.
I talked to your teammate last week, and it seems like you said you guys have gotten off to a better start. You're in a better position now because you're coming on tracks that are really good for you and your team. Particularly Darlington coming up. Martinsville's been pretty good to you guys at times. So do you feel like now you're in a really good position to take that next step?
Yeah, I mean, I think Vegas, was a good place for us. Homestead has been okay the last couple of years, and coming into Martinsville with the next gen car has been good to us. So I think we have a good stretch here before this, first off week coming up to hopefully have a few more good runs. I feel good about Martinsville and obviously Darlington and Bristol as well. So, would like to have some strong runs here. We, like we said, we need some good points days to make up for some of these finishes, which yesterday was better. But I think these tracks coming up, I feel like we'll, where we've been on the drivability and the speed, I think we'll be good. We just have to work on some of the long run capability, some of our adjustments that we make overnight on Saturday and how we're predicting the race. There's still some improvement to be had there. So if we can kind of dial that in and figure that out here a little bit better over the next couple of weeks, I feel pretty good about everything. But I feel overall, the first three races were, just kind of some strange lineup of tracks, and now we're into more of a general, flow of the season.
You mentioned the off week. How important is that for maybe you guys, where you're still trying to figure out how to, take that next step, to have that week to kind of evaluate? I know it's early and I know it's the only one, but is it important for you guys to have that week to kind of figure some things out?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, we're, a smaller group for sure on the engineering side and trying to grow, but there's just not enough people right now to always, do what we need to do week to week in between these races. So having just a week there to kind of regroup and gather up and dive in on some of these issues and things we've been struggling with is pretty important for us. So we have a laundry list of things, I think, after every race. It's just a matter of how many of those can we get to and how many of those can we feel like we've resolved week to week. So when you have a bonus week in there of giving those guys some time to dive in on some more issues and really work some things out, I think it's a benefit for sure. So hopefully we can take advantage of it and make a difference for the next one.
This week at Martinsville, what's kind of the key to that place? Obviously, short, flat, not a lot of room. What's the kind of key to getting around there?
It's changed a lot with the next gen car, for sure. And then it was a little bit different again last fall with the tire that we ran and that we'll be running again here this weekend. There's a lot more fall off, it seems like, after about 60 or 70 laps, which I think is good and made for some better racing in the fall. The next gen car with the shifting and everything we do and how good the brakes are and how much grip it has, there's probably a bit less finesse at times. I feel like, you can make some more mistakes and kind of gather up and make some speed. Qualifying is really important as always, but tough to put together a good lap. It's really hard not to lock the left front up on either of those laps and just put a whole, one good lap together to start up front. So there's a lot that goes into it on the, driver's side, just doing everything right. And then in the race, just staying out of trouble sometimes is the toughest part. The restarts can go bad in a hurry, and you can get yourself in a spot where you're getting kind of knocked around and tore up. So you just got to manage all those things all day, file in where you kind of cycle out on those restarts, and then just manage your run and try not to give up too much on the front side, but also, on the back of those runs, have a car you feel like you can go up and gain some position at the end. So it's a challenging track for sure in a lot of ways, and it's hard to pass and hard to manage your run, but it's one I think we've done well at here recently.
Talked about the tires at Martinsville, and tires are kind of the topic everywhere we go now. Is that really going to be the key to improving some of these races in the next gen? Because it seems like at the tracks where they have gotten the tires to fall off, the racing has improved.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a work in progress. We've gradually kind of introduced these softer and softer tires at more and more tracks, and have been testing them at more and more tracks. At Phoenix, we saw that option tire, and I think the intention there is not to have two tires; it's to have one tire, and we're just kind of seeing if that tire is an option or not, that we can go back and run. So, it's challenging with the next gen car with how good the brakes are, how big the tires are, and the reduced power we have, just to get some fall off in some of these shorter tracks, and even on some of the 1.5 mile tracks. So, continuing to go that route, I think has been good, and it's not easy for Goodyear. They don't obviously want to bring a tire that's going to fail, and have a lot of issues, but also give us one that, will fall off and put on a good show for everybody. So it's been good to work through that. I think it's going in the right direction. It's just kind of a time-consuming process. So I think you'll see more and more of it as we go.
I do want to look ahead just a little bit because you are so good at Darlington. Is that one that you just circle on the calendar when the schedule comes out, no matter what? Because it doesn't matter. Even when Legacy wasn't running very well anywhere else, you still went out there and won that race. So, I mean, how excited do you get for that track?
I always, look forward to it. I look forward more to the fall race. We always run better in that one, but I get excited too to go to this spring one. The first race there is really different, the way that you have to run it, but we've run good as well. But I don't know, just a track I've enjoyed. It's definitely a place, kind of similar to Homestead, where there's a lot of fall off, and you really lose a lot of grip over the runs. You got to set yourself up for the long run and figure out how to move around and just kind of be better in places that other guys aren't, and be able to run lanes that guys are struggling with. So it's just fun. It's one of those places where you still get to race the track a little bit, and not so much racing everybody else, which is just, I think, how a lot of us grew up, and how the sport was a long time ago, but it's really the only place left like that. So yeah, I look forward to going every time, and just always have a good feeling about it. And it's fun to go back and relive some of those memories too.
For my final thought, let's talk about the end of the season, the championship race. Rumors have been swirling for really a while now, but they've kind of picked up intensity with the fact that we just raced at Homestead, that the championship race may be moving back to Homestead. I talked about it last week a little bit. We talked about it with Chris earlier. I really think it's probably one of the best decisions to put it in Homestead. There's a few places that I think would be better than Phoenix. Phoenix is good because the climate, you're very rarely going to get rain. You're very rarely going to have cold. Like, the climate is going to be very temperate. So it gives you stability in that championship race. I mean, the last thing you want is for your championship race to be rained out, right? That would be muy no bueno. So putting it in the desert is a pretty safe bet. Phoenix is a short, flat track. So it's the kind of race that doesn't necessarily give any one driver on paper an advantage, like putting it at a road course wouldn't really work because there'd be a handful of drivers that have an inherent advantage. Like all these guys have raced short tracks a lot, so they are pretty on equal footing there. Although not really, because Penske has off paper gained a huge advantage at Phoenix. But in theory, I really think the only other place that would be good other than Homestead or Phoenix, and kind of where I would like to see the championship race run, but I know it'll never happen because it's an SMI track, is Vegas. I think the idea of an event city like Vegas, kind of a little bit like Miami, but the track's not really in Miami, it's in Homestead. So it's not really like on the South Beach or anything like that. The idea of having the race in an event city like Phoenix, glitz, glamour, I think would draw a lot of attention to NASCAR. And I think would be really cool. You could get probably a lot more celebrities and athletes and things to come to Vegas. I think you'll probably get a decent amount of them if they move into Homestead as well. So that's kind of my dream scenario. Knowing that's not going to happen, the next best place is probably to put it back in Homestead, 1.5 mile track. It's the kind of tracks that we run most of the races on all year long. It's really going to be one of the best measures of who the best NASCAR driver is every year. And Homestead is a really good track. It puts on great racing in this generation car. When it comes to where the championship race is run, I think that probably the best way to decide this moving forward is where's the best racing in this generation that we're in. In the previous generation, Phoenix probably would have been a pretty good race to have a championship race at. Homestead is better with the way the cars are now, with how they're driving, with what's going on. I think it's time to go back to Homestead. Thanks for joining us on the Backstretch. We'll see you next week.